Hello and welcome back to the shop. This little thing is made from a cheap 6-wheel drive buggy. It actually works really well, partly because it's motor on axle. Inside each elongated diff pumpkin there's a 130 motor. 130s are infamous for offering very little torque, but with 3 of them this thing has always got around very well. However, it would seem that these little buggies are not designed for longevity or repairability. Mine's 5 years old and it has absolutely had it. During the time I've owned this thing, I've already swapped all the motors. Let me show you the problem. One of these spins so freely that it's obviously not connected to the motor, and the other one doesn't spin at all. When I give the motors a supply of current, nothing happens with this one and smoke comes out of this one. This entire setup is completely beyond repair. So we're going to do something completely different. Check this out. This is an MN Models MN40 and it's surplus to requirements. It's actually in perfect working order, and I scrapped it for many reasons, one of which was that it's fitted with a 260 size motor and I wanted to go up to a 280. I intend to build a hybrid with the front axle driven by its own internal motor and the rear axle driven by this 260. My reasoning is that if a 260 isn't enough to drive 2 axles with a decent amount of torque, if we send all the torque from that motor just to the rear axle and the front axle shifts for itself, we might have a half decent vehicle. I'm going to cut the chassis just behind the mounting points for the front suspension on either side. I'm used to dismantling dead machines that don't work anymore and trying to give them new life by reusing parts of them. However, cutting up a perfectly serviceable RC did feel kind of sketchy. Be that as it may, we did successfully harvest this half of the truck, and this is what I want. When MN Models first released the MN45, they made a bad mistake. They put the battery right at the back. The MN45 was also very softly sprung, so this meant that the poor thing dragged its ass everywhere it went and kept getting stuck all the time. The subsequent model, the MN40, came out with stiffer rear springs, and we have those, otherwise this simply wouldn't work. Good. That fits in there just as neatly as I envisaged it. I'll find a way to get it bolted on. Here we see what I've achieved so far. It's absolutely firmly mounted, though not very elegantly. You see those angle alley brackets and that bit of wood. And then here we have this bit of wood and that shiny bolt there right in the middle of your screen. That's what's holding everything together. But it absolutely works. I've even wired up the motor. Couldn't find the receiver. In the end I tracked it down in a WPL C34 and reclaimed it. So we're going to test first of all steering. Nothing wrong with that. Throttle. The wheels go in different directions. That's okay. I'll just swap these wires round. Well, I'd have to be unbelievably lucky if the wheels came out rotating at the same speed. It's generally considered desirable, if you don't have your wheels rotating at the same speed, to have the front ones going faster. Let's see if we've been lucky. Yeah, the front ones are going about twice as fast. That would usually be a disaster, but because this 130 is so utterly gutless, I think the 260 will just bully it into obeying and they'll end up going at the same speed. Here's our driver figure. He's the top half of a table football player, with the hole in his torso where the bar used to go filled in, and there are a couple of bits of 3/8 square wood as a spacer to hold him in the right position. Here he is, bolted inside the cab. So we have a driver. I note with interest that when I built this thing, I did a really nice job of routing all the wiring for the lights, and in fact the lights and the wiring are still fine. But when I installed the new rear end the other day, I pinched the wires that lead to the backlights and used them to extend the motor wires. So I'm not going to bother with the lights. I'm glad we're fixing this thing. I've had it a long time and I doubt this repair will be very robust. So really the aim is to get it running again and then kind of park it and let it trundle past in the background in videos and things. It's sort of semi-retired from the fray. It's done a lot of heavy hauling in its time. Most of it off camera. There's the driver. We should be ready to go, and we would be if it weren't for one tiny wrinkle, and it's this. This is this truck's original battery, and it fits very nicely inside. The cells are 18500s. Unfortunately, this battery is completely dead. It doesn't work at all. And the nearest I have are 18650s, which don't fit in this box, even though I've been attacking it with a Dremel at either end. Close, but no cigar. So what I did was I took the lead from the ESC and I ran it out up onto the load bed. I then fashioned this fake packing crate to be lashed on in place there and cover the battery. Let's see it in action. As expected, the gearbox snagged horribly on everything it encountered, but otherwise it didn't do that badly. I'm delighted it survived, and now, as it's officially a runner, it's going on the shelf and coming out once a year. Anyway, thanks very much for watching its resurrection.